Hey guys, welcome back to a new episode of the Mix Breakdown for Zöe Z's All in Your Mind. In this episode, I am going to be talking about the beats and the percussion and all of the production choices I've made to make it sound the way it sounds. Before anything else, if you get any value out of my content in these videos, please like, subscribe, share, tell your friends, because this gives me more opportunity to do more stuff, more interesting, in a better way for you to enjoy. I am a strong believer of the fact that if you choose your sounds well and you mix them correctly, you don't need to layer them as much as many people like to do. In my experience, layering, if it's not done correctly, will introduce a lot of phasing issues and also frequency clashes that take more time to address and resolve than actually spending more time choosing the right sounds. In my opinion, what makes a mix successful and great sounding is bass management. Sometimes when you have too much information in the low end, whether it is from different instruments or from layers of the same instrument, you get a lot of congested energy down there that takes a lot of effort to get rid of. So again, my advice is to choose the sounds correctly and work with what you got as much as you can, and always make room for bass instruments when they come into the mix. You will see later how the kick drum will react to the 808 when it comes in and how they sit against each other. The drums for this specific song come from my copy of Machine, which in this case is used as a coffee cup holder. But I really love this machine, and I'm sorry I'm treating it like that. If you look at the arrangement, the moment of most density of sound, which is the chorus, has only 5 percussion tracks going on. Granted, some are loops, but I always tend to not overburden the song with a lot of information if it's not needed. The drums in the verse sound like this.
Tell me if it's real, you can stay.
And the drums in the chorus sound like this. Before getting in the specific of the single tracks, I would like to show you what I've done with the kick, because that shows you exactly what I was talking about. The biggest sound in the arrangement, beside the vocals, is the 808, which, as you know, it's nothing more than a tuned kick drum that has been mangled and processed. As usual, for sound control, I tend to use Pro Q3 at the end of the chain of effects, and in this case I've used this to shave away all of the bass content when the 808 comes in, because there is so much bass frequency information in the 808 that I don't feel I need to have any bottom end in the kick drums, and you will see it in a second. This is what the kick drum looks like during the verse. This instance of Pro Q3 will show you the spectrogram of the kick drum. And at the same time, when the 808 comes in, it'll show you that too. And you will see how I dovetail the frequencies so that there is little overlap in the bass frequencies between the kick and the bass. If you listen to it without the bass, you will hear that the kick becomes hollow. But when you introduce the 808, then it's different. See? This is the area where the meat of the 808 is. And I just shaved it away from the kick drum. There is no need for the kick to exist there, in my opinion. The same thing happens with this percussion loop. Think about it this way. It's like you have a budget of quantity of bass content that you can have in a mix. If you want an instrument to stand out in the low frequencies, you have to make room for it and be merciless. Make bold choices all the time. Also, to make sure that the spike of the kick comes through loud and clear, I have sidechained it to a compressor that's on the Fender Rhodes instrument. And every time the kick comes in, the Fender Rhodes goes down for 500 milliseconds. I know that this looks like a very small action, but please remember that a balanced mix is a number of very small actions all across the mix that in the end come together and form the bigger picture. Mixing is very much like sculpting a statue. You take large chunks away at the beginning just to give it a rough shape, and then with a small hammer and chisel, you just get in and do the details. And obviously, the smaller your actions are, the more detailed the mix will be. And you have to look at it like that. And here's what the signal chain looks like on the kick drum. First thing I've done to it, I have tuned it using this fantastic Waves plugin called Torque. What this plugin does, it allows you to retune a percussion sound to match the key of the song. Obviously, the transposition has made the sound bigger, but also has introduced some interesting artifacts in the body of the sound, and it makes it a bit more distorted, it makes it a bit more textured, and I really like what it does to it. And this is your friendly reminder to feel free to make mistakes and try out stuff. Sometimes we decide that something doesn't sound good because it's not the expected outcome that we wanted to achieve. But if you allow the machine to make music too and go with it, sometimes you will be pleasantly surprised. The second plugin in the series for the kick drum is a clipper. I really like this guy. This is my go-to clipper. And it's in hard clip mode, and it pushes down the sound quite dramatically. See how the sound gets reined in, contained, but also becomes bigger, more pokey, richer in harmonics. The next step is to give this sound a bit more of a shape. And to do that, I use Metric Halo's transient control. And I use it to make the sound slightly shorter and to enhance the transient. See how the click top of the kick gets enhanced, and that helps it translate through a dense mix. After working on the transients, I have used this plugin that comes with Cubase. It's called Frequency 2, and it's an EQ unit, very much like Pro Q3, but sometimes I get bored using the same plugins. And with this one, I low passed it, and then I gave it a bit of boost around 900 for a little bit more of body. And then I just cut away the subs, and this is what it sounds like. After the sound design part, that's when the sound goes into my mixing desk, in air quotes. This is my trusty Britson channel that I use as a preamp stage for my sounds. I drive it pretty hard. I'm low passing the sound again, and this is what it sounds like. See the richness of the sound once it gets distorted in this unit. After that, I have used this, which is Pt.5, which was my go-to color equalizer for this mix, and is the replica of a Neve Portico EQ unit. With it, I've taken away almost 3 dB at 230 just to get rid of that low rumbling energy that you might have around that area. Again, it's a small operation, but in the context of the mix makes a lot of sense. Then, to accentuate the spaciousness of the sound, I have put in a tiny bit of reverb just to make it slightly more vibey. This is a very short plate, and again, this reverb comes with Cubase. It's called Reverence, and it's a convolution reverb with a lot of interesting spaces and sounds. and I use it quite often for sound design purposes. Last in the chain, Pro Q3, which in this case I use to just get rid of the sub frequencies and then sweep up when the 808 comes in. Next track is what I've called the main beat, and this is all I've done to it. Again, bit of clipping. Cuts through a bit better, makes it a bit clicky. There's some slight saturation going on. After that, I have used this wonderful, wonderful plugin that I use a lot, which is the BX Console SSL 9000J. That's the reproduction of a channel strip of an SSL console that was famous in the 90s for its big, open, lush sound, and it was used in a lot of classical music and hip-hop productions. I have used this specific plugin because I really like how the compressor and the gate sounds. And I use gates all the time to clean up the sound in my productions, especially with beats and stuff where you need the percussion to come through snappy. This is just a ticket. And I use gating especially to further enhance the shape of the sound. Now, you hear the combined effect of the low end high pass filter, the dynamics, and the gating all together. But you will see how the combination of the SSL compression with the SSL gating gives the sound a very, very interesting push forward. It makes it leaner, it makes it more manageable, and at the same time, it makes it cut through. After the sound shaping, then you got preamps. And again, this one, I just distorted the crap out of it. After the preamp, I used my color EQ again, just to cut, again, 3 dB around 240, very much like the other one, just to create room for the low frequencies of the 808. It's a very, very small operation, but it makes a difference. Last but not least, Pro Q3. Just to contain this area. And obviously, when the chorus comes in, it sweeps up the high pass. Also, to give the chorus a different vibe from the verse, I have introduced some reverb in the chorus. So the verse is dry, and then the chorus goes through this replica of a Lexicon 480. The following track, I have done absolutely nothing to it because he didn't need it. Central, no EQ, no reverb. Sometimes you just have to leave it alone. It needs nothing. Don't do anything. Obviously, in the chorus, I introduce two new elements to make it bigger and drive more, and it's the hi-hat and the snare. And this is what the snare drum sounds like. One thing I like to do with my snares is to slightly change the reverb length and decay, just to introduce an extra element of non-linearity in how the percussion sounds. As I've already done with the kick and the loop, that's clipping before anything else. And that takes care of the attack of the sound. Saturation. See how running this sound through a Neve-style preamp gives it a beautiful, lush, soft sponge, halo-like attack, and takes care of the sometimes very clinical, digital, cold sound of some samples. EQing after that, and this time, this is very invasive. I high passed around 143 because that's what my ear told me to do. I got rid of 2 dB at 233, again for the rumbling sound. And then got rid of a bit of harshness up there around 3K, I think. Yeah. Finally, I both boosted 1.6 dB at 19.2 kilohertz and low passed at the same frequency point, just to create air and then contain it. Bit of Pro C2 as compressor. Just to control a bit further the sound. And lastly, Pro Q3 to get rid of a bit of body here and to further contain the bottom end and the top end of the sound. Last thing in the arrangement is the hi-hat. I started by driving the Neve unit again as far as it can go. Since this plugin has volume compensation, when I turn it on, you don't hear a spike in volume, you just hear more harmonics at the same volume. It does sound louder, but it's not. It's just a richer sound. After that, more distortion, because why not? And yes, this one adds volume and a lot of it. Lastly, need EQ, and again, this one is pretty invasive. High pass at 200, and then low shelled at 300 as much as I could, just take away all of the bass content. And then a tiny 1.7 boost at 10K, just for the attack up there. And then a lot of air, 12 dB high shelving at 20 kilohertz, just to take care of the very, very, very high frequencies. And this is what it sounds like. Well, that is all for now. I hope you had a good time. I surely had. And as usual, if you like what you're seeing and hearing and you find any value in these things that I'm showing you, please consider liking, subscribing, sharing, and tell your friends. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.